So Megan, can you please tell me a little bit about yourself and your company?
Sure. Hi, my name is Megan Smith. I'm the CEO of Symbia Logistics. We are a traditional third-party warehousing and logistics company, family-owned, privately held, and we've got a mix of warehouses from coast to coast in the United States. We are up to 17 warehouses right now and about 1,000 employees, kind of fluxes depending on the demand and the need. And we've grown significantly over the last 5 years and just continuing on this growth trajectory with such an amazing industry that's booming. And on the personal side, I have 2 young kiddos and a new puppy. And she's a golden, she's so adorable, and we live in Colorado.
Nice. So you are fairly young, and that is something that's not very common to be a CEO and still just be a young woman in general.
Yeah.
So how is that? I know that in your application, you said that a big challenge you have is trying to get people to stray from traditional practices to new practices. So can you just touch on that a little bit?
For sure, yeah. So, I'm up against a couple of hurdles here. The first being that this is a 3rd generation company. So we've existed for over 30 years, and a lot of the practices that were best practices when we started in, the late 1900s, which is crazy to say, is now not best practice in the 21st century. So we're definitely still, and the industry is too, like transitioning from the 20th to the 21st century. And so, yeah, that's always a challenge, right? In terms of change management, leadership, and just, getting people. We do have tenured employees who have been with us for over 20 years. And not to say that they're unwilling to learn by any means, but the learning curve is different. So there's that piece of the challenge. And then I would just say that the other piece, is what you were talking about, my age, and also being a female. So, being in a male-dominated industry, that's just an obvious kind of barrier to entry in a lot of ways. But then tack on the fact that I am the daughter of the founder. I get a lot of that as well, like, maybe you didn't earn this, maybe it wasn't you. And the truth is, if you dig into our story, my dad and I partnered in 2014 because he needed me to help grow the business. And so I recognize that, but sometimes it's harder for other people to really wrap their head around, wait, she's 36 and a female, and she's been doing this for 12 years. That means I've been doing it almost since I got out of college. And the truth is, those are kind of the obstacles that I've had to overcome. It's not these tangible things where you can say, oh, I'm having a hard time hitting my KPIs. It's kind of those intangible leadership qualities where I've really had to just work with people and honestly probably get my hands a little bit more dirty than your average person because I've had to prove myself.
Right. I can't even imagine, especially with those tenured employees, when they would probably be like, I remember you when you were little and now you're my boss. Like, that's a huge challenge that many people can't really relate to, but you just have to prove yourself even more with them.
Yeah. And it happens kind of across the board. So I would say with, internal employees, but there's also the external factor. My dad's been in the industry for his entire career. My grandfather came from the warehousing space. So I get that a lot too. Oh, I've known you since you were a baby and your dad and your grandpa. And I mean, honestly, like I always can turn something like that into a positive. So I really see those barriers as kind of just opportunities, to continue to break the mold, to continue to be something that people aren't expecting me to be.
So what are some attributes do you think a successful supply chain leader has?
I think that those attributes have changed. One thing we haven't even talked about is the coronavirus world that we live in now. And now versus, 6-8 months ago, what those qualities really looked like were probably a little bit different. But what I will say is that the 2 things that are constant and always important from here moving forward are people and technology. So, being a great leader, understanding that people are the ones still running these supply chains, that, there's a lot of great technology people talk about. There's a lot of really exciting things happening in the space, but it's still people running those businesses. So being a really, good people person is kind of the first thing. And then the technology, not only investing in the technology, investing in the right technology, but understanding that technology is going to take the company forward. And again, those are kind of the two leadership qualities I think are really important right now. I would have said maybe in the past, that technology wasn't as important or that people weren't as important, but I do think that those two items are coming together in the world that we live in. And if you can't manage people and technology, then it's going to be really hard to, compete in the space.
Right. What are some ways that you have promoted change management within your business and like ensured people that technology is okay?
Yeah. So we made a string of acquisitions between 2017 and present. We made 4 different acquisitions. So there was a lot of change management going on. We had multiple different systems at play. So, one of our acquisitions would use this WMS. The other acquisition would use a different OMS. The other one would use another WMS. So we were struggling with a lot of, especially these businesses where these people had been used to working with this technology, used to working with this OMS, this WMS. And we've kind of come in and shaken all of that up and said, even on a human resources, perspective, like you need to use the app to log into your account. You need to log in and clock in through that app. You need to, if you have to change your hours, you need to request it through the app. Some of those things were at first they were like, but that's different. I don't usually clock in on an app. I usually clock in with my punch card. And so just showing them that it's okay, that you're scared, that you're nervous, this is something new, but that we're giving them new tools that they're like, wow, you know what, this OMS, this WMS, this is better. And I'm glad that I took that chance to really get to understand it, because you're right, like my job is so much easier now. And the same thing with the human resources side of the business. Like you have something that you need to talk to a human resources manager. We'll use the application, go on, send them a message, and they're like, oh, I thought that was going to be difficult. But once you can prove to people that technology is making their lives easier, and even on the floor, whether it's an automated, sorting machine that's helping somebody to sort something, or packaging material that is, being distributed automatically, it helps them move faster. And so once they start to adopt that technology, then like, oh yeah, this is great. Like at first I was really nervous, but now I feel good and I have a new skill. And it's just really exciting to see them kind of make that transformation.
Right. And then I know that we have touched on this a little bit before, but are there any other challenges that you have faced in the industry? And if so, how did you overcome them?
Sure. I mean, so I would say that generally speaking, women are going to face challenges in the industry. And there are a lot of, things that you could say, oh, I felt discriminated against in that setting, or, I went to this convention and there wasn't really a place for women, or, those have definitely been things that have happened, right? Like somebody made an inappropriate comment and you're like, okay, well, if I were a man, you would never have said that, so there have been those instances for sure, especially being younger and being a female, it's like a double target. People think that they can just kind of say whatever they want. And it's like, well, you know what, I'm still a human. And, you did say that. And for me, I've always had this mentality of like I said before, turning something negative into a positive, seeing it as an opportunity. And really, like, I always put that back on the person. And I say that, like, is that something you would have said to a man? Because that is offensive. And oh, okay, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean it that way. So I think there are those everyday struggles that we all go through as women in our world in general. And again, especially in a space that is so male dominated, you've got, the pay gap, of course, you've got, women being hired just because they're women and having to deal with that too. Like, hey, we're trying to diversify our network. We're trying, oh, so you just got this job because you're a woman. It's like,
worst.
Not really. No, I'm actually qualified, like,
Right.
to break it to you, but I'm just as qualified for this position as you are. So I think that there are a lot of those struggles still happening as well. And, I face them too.
Right. And that's just so frustrating, because just having to explain, like, I'm a human being, I also have feelings. Like, you shouldn't have to explain that to people, but that is something that women have had to deal with. I've had similar experiences like that at conferences, and it's every day. It's an everyday thing that we have to deal with.
Yeah, and I think that there's becoming a lot more empathy and just like understanding, but the bottom line is something you said just kind of like hit me. You said your emotions. Well, that's something that people use all the time against me. Oh, you're being emotional. And it's like, well, you know what? Women deal with things differently. I'm not actually being emotional. I'm being rational and practical. And
Right.
I'm trying to do something productive from a non-productive conversation, And so it's just funny because, yeah, women do communicate differently. What we might see as not being emotional, somebody else might see as, wow, you're losing your cool,
Right.
So I think that there's kind of that struggle where it's like, well, women do things differently. So men are having to adopt that as well, in an industry where women are making advances and making headway in many ways. We know that there's a lot more room to grow, but I do think that emotional piece of it is very difficult to blend, unless you do it right and embrace it.
Right. And especially because as young girls, we're always told to like not feel. We're always told to hide our emotions and not even to be assertive or stand up for ourselves. And so when we show that like slight frustration, it's the biggest deal in the entire world. We're off the rails, crazy. And that's not it, because you can use those emotions to empower yourself and empower your workers as well.
Yeah, it's very empowering to other people, I think. And I've also found that as well, like showing emotion and getting passionate, maybe getting upset about something in a female way, it does push other people, and then a lot of people say, wow, I really appreciated that you wore your heart on your sleeve in that moment. Like, I really didn't expect that from you.
Yeah.
And that genuine piece of it, I think, is really something that women do bring to the table in the industry, is just this sense of humanism that hasn't really existed before.
Right. I completely agree with you. And so going off of that, why do you think we should get more women to be involved in the industry, and how do we recruit and retain more talented women?
Yeah. Obviously, I think that there's so much opportunity in the space for women, whether that's in a C-suite position like myself, or in a supervisory position, or, what I'm finding even is more in the small parcel, like e-commerce, pick and pack world. You don't need, this is going to go back to my dad. So it's not a good example of necessarily women, but my dad was a blue collar worker. He was working on the floor, and so I guess my point is, like, man, woman, it doesn't matter. There's so much opportunity in the space. It's not about your education. It's not about who you know. It's about how hard you work and how, good you are at your job. And I do think that women have the opportunity to take that leap from the floor to the supervisor, to the manager, to the regional, and all the way up, to the CEO. And I do think that that's an opportunity for women. I see it happening, and it's really exciting. And I think it's important because not only are women a huge percentage of our population, but they're a valuable percentage of our population who bring something different to the table. And, that we deserve a right to be treated equitably. And we're living in a time when equality is more important than ever. And I think that that's where the opportunity is to, stand up for ourselves as women and go after that job that you might not think you're qualified for, that you might not, but you know what? I bet a man would do it. I bet he would. And so, it's just taking that step out of your comfort zone, because there's so much opportunity for women in this space. And, fighting for fair wages, fighting for equal treatment. All of those things are really important to me. And I think that's also an opportunity for women, is to stand up and say, I'm doing the same job as you and I'm getting paid half. That's not right.
Right. I just want to circle back to your comment about your dad, because my dad was also a warehouse worker all my life, and he went up to supervise a factory. And so I'm a first generation college student. I'm the first woman on my dad's side of the family to even graduate college. And
congratulations.
thank you. But when we talk about representation mattering, and we talk about inclusion and diversity and equality, that includes like race, gender, sexuality, but I think we need to talk about like grade levels as well, or like education basis, because
For sure.
with our parents, they worked their way up, and some people can't afford school, and that's an industry where you can go in and not necessarily have a degree and still be successful. And I think that really scares people and limits people, but it's possible. You can do it.
Totally. I completely agree wholeheartedly. I also think that during a time when the education system in itself is being flipped on its head, and you've got Google coming out with a college and a university, and, all of these opportunities to self-educate. You can go get free certifications. You can go build a resume for free. You don't have to pay for school anymore. And, like you, I'm first generation on both sides of my family and the first female. And I just got my master's degree. I just graduated in 2019 at the end of the year. And, everybody's like, why do you need to go back? Like, and honestly, it's for myself. Like, I wanted to prove to myself that I could do this, and
Right.
I didn't need to stop at my undergrad. I could have, but I love learning, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I've always taken the opportunity to do certification courses or these things. So I think that, you've kind of got this perfect storm where the craft trade, the entrepreneurial bug has like fit everybody, and everybody now is in an opportunity and in a place to start their own business. It's not hard. You go to the Secretary of State website, register your company, and then just start marketing it and selling it and doing a good job. It's not as complicated as it used to be to start something amazing, and especially for women. Like like you said, all different types of minorities. There's so much room in the space for minorities in general. Immigrants, a lot of our employees are immigrants, and it's something I'm super proud of. Like, I feel like the supply chain industry is literally the definition of the American dream, and I'm proud of that.
Yeah. Oh, I got like chills when you said that. So what is some advice that you would give to someone that is first starting out in the industry? And it could be a young woman or a man, doesn't matter.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I tell people all the time is that it is hard work. It's hard work. We start early, we end late. There's a lot of overtime in my company and business. It's just the nature of what we do. But what we do never stops. Your job isn't going to go anywhere. You're always going to be employed. And especially in a time like right now, we need essential workers more than ever. And this industry has been deemed essential for a reason. And it's because we need people, and we need good people, and we need people to stick around. And so I think that's the opportunity for everyone looking for a job or looking to get into something that they can build a career. That's the opportunity in supply chain, is that there's always going to be work, and there's always a need for talent. And you don't have to go, to our point earlier, and get an education and spend hundreds of $1,000s on a 4-year school. You can start doing this in high school. You can start doing this in college. And that's an opportunity. That's exciting.
Mm-hmm. And your work matters. Your work in the supply chain will always matter too.
Yeah.
You'll always leave feeling good.
Yeah, you're keeping the world moving, you're keeping, food on people's tables, and, office supplies at people's place of work. And there's a lot of things that go into what we do. And it's kind of the silent hero of our society. Mm-hmm. It's beautiful to be a part of.
Oh, I really agree with you. But then I know that you are a very busy lady. So I only have one last question for you. And
sure.
What does it mean to you to be named as one of the SCCE's first women in supply chain?
Oh my goodness. Well, that's a surprise question. What it means to me is, I have pride in it. Despite the fact that what you pointed out, I am younger than most people, and probably most people on that list. I had a dream and a goal, from the beginning, and this was it. And to be here and have that opportunity and show, not just to my daughter, not just to my sisters, not just to my mom, but to any woman out there that this is possible and that you can be on a list for the first time, and that, you know, you just have to believe, you just have to point and say, that's what I'm going to do. And so this to me is just a representation of the fact that I didn't squander my time. I didn't have some pipe dream that wasn't real. You know, I really have achieved my goals, and that is, it's like winning an Emmy, you know? I feel like I'm accepting my award for something that I've worked my life for, and I'm not stopping here, and I'm just getting started, which is the most exciting part for me. So thank you so much for including me on this list. It's an honor for me, for my company, and for my family. We're all really excited.
Oh, I'm really glad. I know that the future generation of supply chain women are going to see this video, and you're going to inspire so many girls. And so I'm really excited. So thank you for taking time out of your day to talk to me.
Of course. Thank you so much.
No problem.